Nobody wants to injure themselves when they work out, especially as they age. What I've found is it might be because they're working out like a dead person. Curious what I mean? Watch this. So what could I possibly mean when I said maybe they're working out like a dead person? Well, you might be surprised to hear this. Maybe you've never learned this before, but the majority of the understanding about human anatomy is still kind of in the archaic times, and it's based on when dead people were studied. So what I mean by that is when they looked at a muscle on a cadaver, a body laying on a table, and they were studying anatomy and working really hard, and really thankful to all those people because we learned a lot because of them over the decades and centuries. But what would happen is they would look at how a muscle connected to the body, where it was attached, and then they would figure out, well, if that muscle contracts, which means when it gets shorter, they were talking about concentric contraction. Muscles contract different ways. They contract isometrically, where there's no movement, but they get tense. They contract concentrically, which they shorten, like when you do a bicep curl. They also contract eccentrically. They get longer under tension. If I was lowering something slowly, that's an eccentric contraction. But what they determined when they studied anatomy initially was that wherever the muscle attached, if it shortened, that's what the muscle's job was, to move those body parts. So I'll try to give a simple example. So let's take the bicep, very easy to visualize here. And so the bicep muscle crosses two joints. It crosses your elbow and it crosses your shoulder. Now you've got a long head and a short head. I'm trying to keep this more simple. So if I go to shorten my bicep muscle, if I do this, then what it does is it bends my elbow. And if I shorten my bicep muscle all the way and lift my arm up, which shortens it even more, now it will bend at the shoulder. So we'll get a couple of joints there. Now, because of how it crosses this joint, if I pronate, so this would be neutral. If I go palms down, that's pronate. Sorry, I meant if I supinate. And if I go palm up, that's supinate. So if I really want to get that muscle short, I'm going to supinate because of how it's attached past the elbow. And I'm going to flex the elbow or bend the elbow and the shoulder. And that's going to maximize just how short my bicep can be during a concentric contraction. And that would be if I had a TheraBand that I had some resistance and I want to supinate and curl and bring that up and bring that up. And this is a very stiff band, so bringing that up. Now, that's a concentric contraction. Now, if my muscle can also eccentrically contract, which means if I take a weight and I just lower it with control, that's my bicep getting longer and controlling how slow or how I want to lower that weight. That's an eccentric contraction. And then if I just take like this, and I don't mean to get off camera here, but if I just push into that as if I want to bend my elbow, I can feel my bicep contract, but there's no shortening or lengthening. It's just contracting. That's isometric. So a lot of the times when we work out in the gym, we're focusing on the concentric or the shortening because that's how we're taught, that's how the muscle works, and that's how we get that hypertrophy and that, growth in the muscle. Or we want to get stronger, we want those firm arms, we want the guns, we want all those things. So here's the deal. If you spend years repetitively shortening a muscle as you isolate it, which means don't let anything else help, let's just cause that muscle to do the job 100% or as much as we can. I'll explain how that's not possible in a moment. And yeah, you're right. You will your muscles will get sore, they'll be tender to the touch because they'll break down, and then after 24 to 48 hours, they'll build back up again, and you might see some increase in size, you'll certainly feel stronger, those kind of things. The problem with it is, when you go to isolate, and again, we'll stick with the bicep here to make it simple. When you go to isolate, I'm going to keep that elbow right there. I'm going to supinate. I'm going to bend that elbow, and I'm going to bring that up all the way. Most people don't do this when they're trying to really get their bicep. Most of them will just stick with the elbow and the pronation of the, supination. I keep saying the wrong word. Supination of the forearm. So we come up like this. And how many of you have done this? Literally hundreds, maybe thousands of times over the years, correct? And how often do you think bicep tendonitis is diagnosed? It's pretty common. I saw a lot of people come into the clinic with bicep tendonitis. And most of the time, my observation was they were people who went to the gym, usually after work or before work, maybe their lunch hour, 3, 4, 5 times a week. They weren't gym rats. They weren't spending 3, 4 hours there, and I don't mean to disparage anybody who spends that time at the gym, but they weren't living at the gym. And they were doing maybe an hour workout. They liked to, work the weights. Maybe they do some treadmill or some aerobic, but most of the time was just using the weights. But they did that year in and year out, and they were isolating. They weren't allowing any other body part to do anything because that would be cheating. And so guess what? The bicep says, why aren't you letting anybody else do anything? Why are you trying to make me do it all? Now, I will tell you that it's while we attempt to isolate, and it is functionally isolating that muscle by attempting to not let any other body part work. But there's something called physics, and one of the laws of physics is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So in order for me to lift this weight, and if you really pay attention to what your body's doing, you will feel some internal tension, and I'm actually I can feel the weight of my feet pushing slightly harder into the floor as I lift this up. Because there has to be a force equal to the force required to lift this up that's doing an opposite. Because, you don't float when you get out of a chair, you push through the floor with your feet in order to lift your body, that equal and opposite motion. So you can't really isolate the bicep and let no other body part work. However, what is the bicep actually designed to do if you're living and you're not training like a dead person? Well, the whole body is involved. So say I want to pick something up. Well, I want to show you what happens. Actually, here, let me put this in a little better in the camera here. So say I want to pick this up. Obviously, my biceps are going to be part of that because I'm going to pick it up. But am I going to do this? Now you can see right away, I'm bending because it's lower. Most of the stuff we pick up is a little bit lower than, usually we're not just here at a counter height, although that can happen. But I am going to step forward. I am leaning into that leg. I'm bending that knee. I'm coming down to pick that up. So right now, I just loaded the back of my body to get ready to unload to lift that item. Arm had almost nothing to do with that. It was all the rest of my body. I'm getting ready to push through my foot, come back up to standing as I lift that item. So, and you can see this is just a normal way to pick something up. I'm bending down, I'm going to push through that foot, and I'm going to lift that up. Was my bicep part of that? Absolutely. Was my bicep the only thing that worked? No. My whole body was involved. So why do we attempt to isolate body parts rep after rep after rep against resistance and lead to tendonitis and injury and overuse? It's not overuse, it's wrong use. So let me show you, if you want to pick something up healthy. Now, if this was really heavy, I mean, this is only like 5 pounds, weighs next to nothing. But if this was really heavy, I would be maybe using both hands, maybe just one, but I would get it close to my body and then push through the floor with my foot to stand back up. No injury there, no risk of overuse, no risk of anything, because the power source is involved, my whole body is being used, and my bicep says, thank you, everybody, for helping me pick that up. So how would you do that in the gym setting? Well, let your body be involved. Now, there's also something called using 3 planes to work your muscles, and not just one plane of motion, but that'll be the next video. So what I'm going to show you is, if I want to do my biceps, I could use both. Where'd the other weight go? It's over here. I could do both, or I could do one at a time, or I could alternate. But the goal would be, let my body be part of it. And now we're not talking about momentum here. Momentum is a different thing. Momentum is once I get it going, it doesn't use very much muscle to have to do it. You know, a body in motion tends to stay in motion. So physics kind of helps you there. But you can do a little bit of body, just do a little bit of bend in the knees, and when you come up, push through your feet. So you're lower slowly to get that nice load as it lengthens and then shortens. But this way, you're getting a little more body involved. The bicep doesn't say, why are you leaving me all by myself to do all this work? Nobody's helping me. And you're going to lessen your risk of injury. Now, there's more than one plane of motion, but most people will just do this for a bicep curl. But don't force your biceps to do all by themselves. And of course, this is a very light weight. If I was using a heavier weight, it doesn't necessarily have to be a swing but if I'm pushing through my feet, my biceps can get a really good load as I lift that up. But because my other body parts are part of this, I'm extremely unlikely to injure myself. Hopefully that makes sense to you. If it does, I look forward to your comments. If you like this, please hit the like button. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. And I look forward to doing some more videos on this topic, and hopefully it will help you. I'll see you next time.